The trading post on Kepler Station hummed with activity as beings from across the galaxy conducted their business. Marcus Chen adjusted his worn leather jacket and checked the manifest on his datapad for the third time that morning. As a freelance courier, he had delivered everything from medical supplies to diplomatic messages, but today felt different. The package he was meant to collect came with an unusual warning about cultural sensitivity and proper handling protocols. The Valyrian delegate who approached him stood nearly 7 feet tall with silver skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's artificial lighting. Her elongated limbs moved with fluid grace, and her large violet eyes held an intelligence that made Marcus feel like she could read his thoughts. She wore elaborate robes that appeared to be woven from threads of pure starlight. "You are the human courier Marcus Chen," she said in accented but perfect standard. "I am Ambassador Lyra of House Stellaris. The item you will transport is of great importance to my people." Marcus nodded professionally, though he felt dwarfed by her presence. "I understand, ma'am. My ship is equipped with climate-controlled storage, and I have clearance for diplomatic cargo." Lyra's expression grew solemn as she gestured to an ornate case carried by 2 guards. "This contains the starfire blade forged by our ancestors when the first stars were young. It must reach my daughter Elena on the frontier world of Haven Prime. She serves as our cultural attaché there, but recent reports suggest the colony faces threats from raiders." The case itself was a work of art crafted from what appeared to be crystallized starlight. Intricate patterns covered its surface, and Marcus could swear he felt warmth radiating from within. As the guards transferred it to his care, he noticed their reverent handling of the container. "Is there anything specific I should know about the blade itself?" Marcus asked as he signed the transfer documents. "The starfire blade chooses its wielder," Lyra replied cryptically. "For 3,000 years it has remained in our family vault. That it emerges now suggests momentous events approach. Guard it well, human. More than you realize may depend on your success." The journey to Haven Prime took 5 days through hyperspace. Marcus found himself drawn to the cargo hold where the case rested in its secured housing. Sometimes he thought he heard a faint humming emanating from within, but his ship's sensors detected nothing unusual. The feeling of being watched grew stronger each day, though he remained alone aboard his vessel. Haven Prime appeared as a blue-green jewel against the void, a terraformed world on the edge of known space. The colony had been established only 50 years ago, but had grown into a thriving community of humans and various alien species seeking new opportunities. As Marcus requested landing clearance, he noticed an unusual amount of military chatter on the communication channels. The spaceport control tower directed him to a secure landing bay, where Elena waited with a small escort. She possessed the same ethereal beauty as her mother, but stood only slightly taller than Marcus himself. Her silver hair was braided with small crystals that caught the light, and her violet eyes held worry that she tried to hide behind diplomatic composure. "Courier Chen, thank you for bringing this safely across the galaxy," Elena said as she approached. "I trust the journey was uneventful." "Mostly yes, though I have to ask about the increased security here," Marcus replied as he supervised the unloading of the case. "The comm channels suggest some kind of threat." Elena's expression darkened. "Pirates have been growing bolder in recent months. They call themselves the Crimson Fleet, and their leader Kane is notorious for his brutality. Our intelligence suggests they may be planning something significant, but we lack the military strength to deter them effectively." As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring across the spaceport. Emergency broadcasts crackled through the speakers announcing incoming hostile vessels. Elena's guards immediately surrounded her as military personnel rushed to defensive positions. "It seems your timing is unfortunate," Elena said with forced calm. "The Crimson Fleet has chosen this moment to make their move." Marcus watched through the hangar's transparisteel windows as dark shapes emerged from hyperspace. The pirate vessels were patchwork affairs, bristling with weapons and painted in garish colors. Their leader's flagship was a massive dreadnought that dwarfed the colony's small defense fleet. "We need to get you to safety," one of Elena's guards urged. "No," she replied firmly. "I will not abandon the colonists. We make our stand here." The first wave of attackers descended like hungry predators. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, while dropships disgorged armed raiders across the settlement. The colony's defenders fought bravely, but were clearly outmatched. Marcus found himself caught between his professional obligation to complete the delivery and a growing desire to help. "The case," Elena called out as explosions rocked the hangar. "It must be opened. The blade may be our only hope." As Marcus approached the ornate container, he felt that strange warmth intensify. The crystalline surface seemed to pulse with inner light, responding to his proximity. When his fingers touched the locking mechanism, it opened with a soft chime, revealing the weapon within. The Starfire blade was beautiful beyond description. Its metal seemed to contain captured starlight, while the edge gleamed with impossible sharpness. The hilt was wrapped in leather that had been treated with substances Marcus couldn't identify, and the pommel held a crystal that pulsed like a beating heart. "I cannot wield it," Elena said with regret. "The blade requires a warrior's touch, and I am merely a diplomat. But you, courier, you have the calluses of someone who has known combat." Marcus stared at the weapon, feeling drawn to it despite his better judgment. "I'm just a courier. I deliver things, I don't fight wars. Sometimes circumstances choose our path for us," Elena replied as another explosion shook the building. "The blade has traveled across the galaxy to reach this moment. Perhaps it was meant for you." Against all logic, Marcus found himself reaching for the weapon. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, he felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had ever experienced. The blade hummed with power, and knowledge flooded his mind. He saw the weapon's history, felt the courage of its previous wielders, and understood its true purpose. "By the stars," Elena whispered, "the blade accepts you, but do you understand what this means according to our customs?" Marcus barely heard her words as the first pirates breached the hangar. They were a mixed group of species, united only by their greed and cruelty. Their leader was a massive Tal'kai, whose tusks were decorated with the bones of his victims. Behind him came humans, Orions, and others who had chosen the path of violence over civilization. Well, the Tal'kai growled as he spotted Elena. "The little princess and her pet human. Cain will pay handsomely for your capture. Stand down," Marcus heard himself say as he stepped forward. The Starfire blade seemed to guide his movements, and he felt strength flowing through his limbs. "Leave this place, and no harm will come to you." The pirates laughed at his words until they saw the weapon in his hands. The Starfire blade's light grew brighter, casting dancing shadows across the hangar walls. Ancient symbols appeared along its length, glowing with inner fire. "That's no ordinary sword," one of the pirates whispered. "I've heard stories about Valyrian blades. They're cursed. Cursed to kill pirates," a Marcus replied with a confidence he didn't know he possessed. The last chance to leave peacefully. The Tal'kai leader roared and charged forward, his massive war axe gleaming in the artificial light. Marcus moved without conscious thought, the blade guiding his actions. He sidestepped the clumsy attack and brought the Starfire blade across his opponent's weapon. The ancient steel parted, the modern alloy like it was made of paper. The remaining pirates hesitated as their leader fell. Marcus pressed his advantage, moving among them with fluid grace. The blade seemed to anticipate each attack, deflecting energy bolts and cutting through armor with equal ease. Within minutes, the hangar was cleared of enemies. Impossible, Elena breathed as she watched Marcus lower the weapon. You fight as if you've trained with that blade for decades. I feel like I have, Marcus replied uncertainly. When I touched the hilt, I saw things, experienced memories that weren't mine. The blade carries the knowledge of its previous wielders. Before Elena could respond, more pirates poured into the hangar. This time they came prepared with heavy weapons and energy shields. Marcus found himself at the center of a growing battle as the conflict spread throughout the spaceport. The starfire blade sang as it cut through the chaos. Energy beams that should have been lethal were deflected by the weapon's edge, while its light seemed to blind the pirates' targeting systems. Marcus moved like a dancer of death, each motion flowing into the next with perfect precision. How is this possible? Elena called out as she directed the colony's defenders. No human should be able to wield a Valyrian blade with such skill. The blade teaches as it's used, Marcus replied between strikes. It's showing me techniques passed down through generations of your people. But there's something else, something about traditions I don't understand. The battle raged for hours as wave after wave of pirates descended upon the colony. Himself at the FORE, FRONT, take of a breath every OBSERVE. Engagements the starfire blade, carving through enemy ranks with supernatural efficiency. But for every pirate that fell, two more seemed to take their place. We can't hold them forever, Elena said as she tended to wounded defenders. Kane's forces are too numerous and our ammunition is running low. Then we end this by cutting off the head, Marcus replied grimly. Where is their leader? Elena pointed toward the colony's central plaza, where a massive figure in ornate armor was directing the assault. Kane stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body a patchwork of cybernetic enhancements and battle scars. His reputation as a killer was well earned, and his presence on the battlefield inspired fear in defenders and pirates alike. He's too dangerous, Elena protested. Kane has killed dozens of warriors in single combat. Even with the blade, you're risking everything. I'm already risking everything. Marcus replied as he checked the weapon's edge. The blade chose me for this moment. I won't let it down. The path to Kane led through a gauntlet of his most elite warriors. Marcus fought his way forward step by bloody step, the starfire blade, leaving a trail of fallen enemies in its wake. The weapon's light grew brighter with each victory, as if feeding on the conflict around it. Kane noticed his approach and dismissed his subordinates with a gesture. So the human thinks he can challenge the terror of the void. He laughed. I've killed 1,000 warriors better than you. You've never faced a Valyrian blade. Marcus replied as he entered the improvised arena. And you've never faced someone fighting for something greater than profit. Kane's weapon was a massive energy sword that crackled with destructive power. His cybernetic enhancements gave him superhuman strength and speed, while his armor was proof against most weapons. By all rights, he should have been an impossible opponent for a mere human courier. But Marcus was no longer just a courier. The starfire blade had awakened something within him, a connection to the ancient Valyrian warriors who had wielded it before. He felt their strength flowing through him, their knowledge guiding his movements, their courage steeling his resolve. The duel began with Kane's typical brutality. He sought to overwhelm his opponent with raw power, counting on his superior size and equipment to carry the day. His energy sword carved through the air, leaving trails of superheated plasma as he pressed his attack. Marcus danced away from each strike, letting the starfire blade guide his movements. The ancient weapon seemed to know exactly where Kane would attack, next allowing its wielder to stay always one step ahead. When opportunities arose, Marcus struck back, his blade finding the gaps in Kane's armor with surgical precision. Impossible, Cain snarled as Marcus's blade scored another hit. My armor is reinforced with neutronium alloy. No sword should be able to cut through it. This is no ordinary sword. Marcus replied as he pressed his advantage. It was forged in the heart of a dying star by craftsmen who understood the true nature of matter and energy. The battle continued with neither fighter able to gain a decisive advantage. Cain's strength was matched by Marcus's speed, while the pirate leader's experience was countered by the blade's accumulated wisdom. But gradually the tide began to turn as Cain's cybernetic systems started to overheat from the prolonged combat. You fight well for a human, Cain admitted as he struggled to maintain his guard, but you're still just flesh and blood. My enhancements will outlast your stamina. We'll see. Marcus replied as he launched a series of rapid strikes. The starfire blade moved like liquid lightning, each attack flowing seamlessly into the next. Cain's defenses began to crumble under the relentless assault. The end came suddenly as Marcus found the opening he had been seeking. The starfire blade slipped past Cain's guard and pierced his primary power core. Energy cascaded through the pirate leader's systems, causing his cybernetic implants to fail one by one. Cain fell to his knees, his weapon clattering to the ground. How, he gasped, how did a mere courier defeat the terror of the void? I'm not just a courier anymore. Marcus replied as he looked down at the dying pirate. The blade chose me for something greater. With their leader dead, the remaining pirates fled the colony. The Crimson Fleet's ships departed as quickly as they had arrived, leaving behind only the wreckage of their failed assault. The colonists emerged from their shelters to find their world safe once more. Elena approached Marcus as he stood in the plaza, still holding the starfire blade. The weapon's light had dimmed to a gentle glow, but its power remained evident in the way it seemed to resonate with the very air around it. You saved us all, she said with genuine gratitude. The colony owes you a debt that can never be repaid. I was just doing my job, Marcus replied, though he knew that wasn't entirely true. The blade did most of the work. The blade chose you, Elena corrected, and now we must discuss what that means for both of us. Marcus looked at her with confusion. What do you mean? Elena's expression grew serious as she gestured to the weapon in his hands. The starfire blade has been in my family for 3,000 years. It has only ever been wielded by those who were destined to protect our bloodline. According to our most ancient traditions, one who can wield the blade must become part of the family. I don't understand, Marcus said, though a growing suspicion was forming in his mind. The blade chooses not just a warrior but a protector, Elena explained. One who is bound to defend the family line through marriage. You have wielded my clan's sword to protect me. According to our customs, this means you must become my husband. Marcus stared at her in shock. But I'm just a courier. I don't know anything about your customs or traditions. I delivered a package and ended up in a fight. The blade doesn't make mistakes. Elena replied gently, It has guided you to this moment just as it guided my ancestors to their destined partners. I know this is unexpected, but our customs are sacred. What if I refuse? Marcus asked, though he found the idea strangely distressing. Then you would dishonor the blade and bring shame upon both our families, Elena said seriously. But more than that, you would be denying the destiny that has been written in the stars. Marcus looked down at the starfire blade in his hands. The weapon seemed to pulse with gentle warmth, as if encouraging him to accept his fate. He thought about the knowledge it had shared with him, the strength it had given him, and the bond he now felt with Elena's people. I need time to think, he said finally. This is all happening too fast. I understand, Elena replied with compassion. But know that I too am bound by these traditions. The blade has chosen you as my protector, and by our laws that makes you my intended husband. I cannot marry another while this bond exists. The weight of responsibility settled on Marcus's shoulders like a mantle. He had come to Haven Prime as a simple courier, but the starfire blade had transformed him into something more. He was no longer just Marcus Chen, freelance pilot and deliverman. He was the chosen wielder of an ancient weapon with all the duties and obligations that entailed. "Tell me about these traditions," he said as they walked toward the colony's administrative center. "If I'm to be bound by them, I should understand them." Elena smiled for the first time since their meeting. "The customs date back to the founding of our civilization. The Starfire blade was created not just as a weapon, but as a symbol of our people's unity. It chooses those who embody the virtues we hold most dear: courage, honor, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. And it's always chosen members of your family?" Marcus asked. "No," Elena replied. "Sometimes it chooses outsiders who prove themselves worthy. My great-grandmother was a warrior from the outer colonies who saved our homeworld from invasion. The blade chose her, and she married into our family, bringing new strength to our bloodline." They entered Elena's quarters, where she showed him ancient texts and historical records. The walls were covered with portraits of previous blade wielders, each one radiating the same quiet strength that Marcus now felt within himself. "Look at this," Elena said, as she opened a particularly old tome. "The prophecy of the Starfire blade, written by our first ancestors. It speaks of a time when the blade would choose a guardian from beyond the stars to protect our people in their darkest hour." Marcus studied the ancient text, though he couldn't read the Valyrian script. "What does it say exactly?" "It speaks of a warrior who would come from the void bearing the courage of his ancestors. He would wield the blade against great darkness, and in doing so would unite two peoples in bonds stronger than starlight." "Two peoples," Marcus repeated. "Humans and Valyrians. The prophecy suggests as much," Elena said carefully. "Your people are young in galactic terms, but they have shown remarkable courage and adaptability. Perhaps this union is meant to strengthen both our races." Marcus felt the weight of destiny pressing down on him. "What kind of life would we have? I know nothing about being a Valyrian noble or whatever I'm supposed to become." "You would be my husband and the defender of our family line," Elena explained. "It's not an easy path, but it's one filled with purpose. Together we would work to strengthen the bonds between our peoples and prepare for whatever challenges the future may bring. And if I can't be the man you need me to be," Elena reached out and touched his hand gently. "The blade chose you, Marcus. It saw something in you that even you don't recognize yet. I trust its judgment, and I'm willing to trust you." That night Marcus stood alone on the colony's observation deck looking out at the stars. The Starfire blade rested beside him, its crystalline pommel reflecting the light of distant suns. He thought about his old life as a courier traveling from world to world with no real purpose or direction. Now he had been offered something greater, a chance to be part of something important to protect people and make a real difference in the galaxy. The price was his freedom, but perhaps true freedom came from choosing to serve something greater than oneself. The blade pulsed with gentle warmth, as if sensing his thoughts. Marcus picked it up and felt the connection strengthen between them. Through that bond he sensed the presence of all the warriors who had wielded it before him. Their strength flowed through him along with their wisdom and their acceptance. "All right," he said to the weapon, "I accept my destiny." The next morning Marcus found Elena in the colony's garden, tending to flowers that had been brought from the Valyrian homeworld. She looked up as he approached, and he saw hope in her violet eyes. "I've made my decision," he said as he knelt beside her. "I'll honor the blade's choice and your family's traditions. I'll become your husband and the protector of your bloodline." Elena's smile was radiant as she took his hands in hers. "Then we are truly bonded by forces greater than ourselves. The blade has chosen well." The wedding ceremony took place a week later, with representatives from both human and Valyrian communities in attendance. The ritual was ancient and complex, involving oaths spoken in the old tongue and the blessing of the Starfire blade upon their union. As Marcus and Elena exchanged vows, he felt the weight of his new responsibilities settling upon him. He was no longer just a courier, but a guardian of an ancient legacy. The blade at his side hummed with approval as he promised to protect Elena and her people with his life. "Do you understand now?" Elena whispered as they danced at their wedding reception. "This was always meant to be. The blade didn't choose you by accident. I'm beginning to." Marcus replied as he held her close. "I came here to deliver a package, but I found something much more valuable." "What's that?" "A purpose," Marcus said as he looked into her eyes. "A reason to be more than I was." The starfire blade rested at his side, its light dim but constant. Through their bond, Marcus could feel its satisfaction at the completion of its latest task. It had traveled across the galaxy to find him, and in doing so had changed both their destinies forever. As they danced beneath the stars, Marcus understood that his life as a simple courier was over. He was now part of something ancient and powerful, a guardian chosen by destiny to protect those he loved. The blade had given him not just strength, but purpose, and in Elena he had found not just a wife, but a partner in the great work that lay ahead. The future stretched before them filled with unknown challenges, but Marcus faced it without fear. The starfire blade had chosen him, and with that choice had come the strength to meet whatever darkness might threaten their world. He was no longer just Marcus Chen the courier. He was Marcus Chen, wielder of the starfire blade and protector of House Stellaris. Together, he and Elena would face whatever came their way, bound by ancient traditions and united by a love that had been written in the stars themselves.